The stadium wasn't just loud that night, it was volcanic. Nearly 80,000 people packed into the stands, their breath fogging the cool air, their energy buzzing like a live wire. The halftime lights blasted across the field as Donald Trump stepped onto the turf, lifting his hand in a practiced wave. He expected applause. He expected cheers. What he got instead, hit like a tidal wave. It started with one sharp boo from the upper deck, then another, then a cluster. Then the entire stadium erupted, a rolling thunder of rejection so loud it rattled the metal framework above. Broadcasters went silent. Cameras zoomed in instinctively, capturing the moment his forced smile stiffened, then cracked. And high above the chaos, sitting in a sleek VIP box, was Denzel Washington, calm, steady, unbothered. He didn't flinch. He didn't mutter a word. He simply leaned back, folded his hands, and let a subtle, knowing smile rise on his face. Not mocking, not dramatic, just inevitable. Fans around him pointed at the field. Phones rose. Clips began uploading in real time. The internet caught fire instantly. Denzel's face says everything. That smile though, this is the moment the country collectively exhaled. As the booing grew louder, as Trump tried to regain control of his expression, the contrast between desperation and composure became its own storyline. And that storyline, fictional though it was about to explode across the nation. Within minutes of the stadium eruption, the moment had already escaped Trump's control. Phones caught every angle, wide shots, close-ups, slow-motion zooms on his tightening jaw. But one clip rose above the rest, the shot of Trump frozen under the stadium lights cross-cut with Denzel Washington's calm, knowing smile in the VIP box. Someone online edited it in seconds. Another added dramatic music. A third slapped on the caption, 2 reactions, 1 truth. And that was all it took. The clip detonated across social media like a political earthquake. Washington staffers pretended not to watch it. Campaign aides tried to drown it out with statements about fake outrage. But the damage was already spreading, millions of shares, millions of comments, all in real time. Cable news couldn't resist. One panel replayed it 5 times in a row. Another slowed down Denzel's smile like it was evidence in a national investigation. Look at him, one commentator said. That's a man who knew this moment was coming. This clip might be the beginning of a narrative Trump can't outrun, another added. Meanwhile, Trump's team scrambled behind the scenes, furious, shouting, demanding the networks shift focus. But the incident had become larger than Trump, larger than the stadium, larger than the moment itself. It had turned into a symbol, a fictionalized reflection of a country fed up with noise. And drawn to steady voices. All the while, Denzel stayed silent. He didn't release a statement, he didn't tweet, he didn't posture. He simply let the world react. And the world reacted louder than the stadium ever could. Backstage at the stadium, the atmosphere was pure chaos. Staffers sprinted between security gates, radios crackling, voices raised to full panic mode. Trump had been escorted off the field faster than the cameras could adjust their focus. Now he paced in a narrow concrete hallway, face red, lips pulled tight in frustration. "Who let that go live?" he barked, pointing at a stunned assistant. "Sir, it was, the entire stadium was live," she stammered. "That's not an excuse," he snapped. "Fix it. Spin it. Do something." But there was nothing to fix. Nothing to spin. Millions had already seen the wave of boos. Millions more were watching the clips being remixed, memed, amplified. Meanwhile, a campaign advisor whispered into a phone in the corner, "No, he's not calming down. He's furious. He's saying it's a setup. I don't know, maybe blame the sound system." Every idea crashed before it left their mouths. Nothing could overpower the raw truth of the footage. And then, another blow. A staffer rushed in, pale, holding a tablet. "Sir, it's Denzel. His reaction is going viral." Trump whipped around. What reaction? The staffer hit play. There it was. The stadium booing in full force, Trump's face caught in the glare, and Denzel Washington, high above, composed like a man watching a storm he'd predicted weeks before. His slow, subtle smile. His steady eyes. His silence that said everything. Trump's expression hardened. "That's not a smile," he muttered. "He's mocking me. He's trying to embarrass me." The staffer didn't answer. The silence filled the hallway like concrete. For the first time all night, Trump wasn't fighting the crowd. He was fighting the narrative. And the narrative wasn't going his way. While Trump's team spiraled backstage, the VIP lounge above the stadium hummed with a different kind of energy, quiet, electric, expectant. People inside whispered to each other, replaying the viral moment on their phones, stealing glances at Denzel Washington, who remained as composed as ever. He wasn't smiling anymore, but the calmness in his expression had only deepened, like a man waiting for the world to catch up to a truth he already knew. A reporter, young, nervous, sweating through his collar, approached Denzel cautiously. "Mr. Washington, sir, everyone's talking about your reaction. Do you want to make a statement? Even just one sentence?" Denzel didn't look up at first. He took a slow sip of water, set the glass down, folded his hands. When he finally met the reporter's eyes, the room went still. "A statement," he said quietly. "A crowd spoke louder than any statement I could give." The reporter blinked. "So, you're saying the booing reflects something bigger?" Denzel leaned back, gaze fixed on the stadium far below. "You don't get 80,000 people to react like that by accident," he replied. "A moment like that doesn't come out of thin air. It's built. Layer by layer. Choice by choice." Someone nearby whispered, "He's talking about Trump." Denzel looked at the reporter again. "No man gets booed like that for nothing," he said. "Crowds don't lie. Cameras don't lie. People don't lie. Not all at once." The reporter's recorder trembled in his hand. "Are you taking a political position?" he asked carefully. Denzel shook his head. "This isn't politics. This is reality finally catching up." The room held its breath around him. And just like that, Denzel stood, adjusted his jacket, and walked out without another word. His silence had gone viral. Now his words were about to detonate the story even further. By midnight, every major network had one question. Will Denzel speak publicly? Producers fought each other over satellite time. Hosts rehearsed intros. Commentators drafted takes before the interview even existed. And when a late-night news anchor managed to secure a live remote with Denzel, it was over. The country stopped to watch. The screen split, on the left, the anchor, on the right, Denzel, sitting in a simple studio, no fancy lighting, no entourage, just him and a calm expression that somehow made everything else feel louder. "Mr. Washington," the anchor began, "your reaction tonight, your smile, has become the defining image of the game. What did it mean?" Denzel didn't answer immediately. He let the question breathe, let the silence do the work. Then, in that steady, unmistakable voice, he said, "When a leader loses the room, it shows." The anchor blinked. "You're referring to the boos?" "I'm referring," Denzel said, "to the reason behind them." A ripple went through the studio. The anchor leaned in. "Are you saying the crowd's reaction was earned?" Denzel nodded once. "People don't erupt like that because they're confused. They erupt because they're fed up. Whether it's politics, promises, or behavior, eventually, reality hits the stage." The anchor pushed further. "Some say your reaction embarrassed Trump." Denzel gave a faint, almost sympathetic shrug. "I didn't embarrass him. The crowd did. The moment did. A camera simply caught what was already there." The anchor paused, searching for words, but Denzel wasn't finished. "You asked what my smile meant," he said. "It meant I recognized the truth. And the truth doesn't need my help, it exposes itself." Social media exploded instantly. Denzel just ended the debate. This is the calmest takedown in TV history. He didn't raise his voice, and somehow that made it louder. Trump's team, watching from a hotel suite, went silent. For the first time all night. The firestorm had a narrator. And he wasn't on their side. At 6 a.m. the next morning, Trump's team finally convinced him to go live. The plan was simple: take control of the narrative, flip the humiliation, and make Denzel the villain. But the moment he stepped in front of the cameras, it was already clear: he wasn't calm, he wasn't strategic, and he definitely wasn't in control. "Let me tell you something," he began, voice tight, eyes darting everywhere except the lens. "Those boos? Fake." The media pumped up the sound. "Everyone knows it." Reporters exchanged looks. Producers whispered into headsets. Social media comments poured in before he even finished the sentence. "We all saw the raw footage, bro." The crowd was louder than the speakers. This isn't 2016 anymore. Trump pressed on, visibly sweating. And Denzel Washington, he snapped, he wasn't smiling. He was, grimacing. "He doesn't know anything. He's irrelevant." It was the wrong move. Every bit of it. Within minutes, TV analysts replayed Denzel's interview, showing the stark contrast between Trump's frantic tone and Denzel's composed clarity. Clips went viral comparing Trump's intensity to Denzel's calm, one burning out, the other burning in. Commentators didn't hold back. "He's melting down. He's trying to fight a smile. You can't out-talk a moment that already happened." Meanwhile, in a quiet studio miles away, Denzel watched the broadcast without a word. No smirk. No irritation. Just the same centered focus he'd carried all night. A producer beside him hesitated. "Do you want to respond?" Denzel shook his head. "You don't chase a storm," he said softly. "You let it spend itself." The quote hit social media instantly, flooding timelines faster than Trump's interview could trend. In the battle of reactions, one man was fighting the world. The other was letting the world draw its own conclusions. And the world had already chosen who looked stronger. By noon, America was on fire, not with violence, but with opinions sharper than knives. The booing clip had already consumed the morning cycle, but now Trump's shaky response was the fuel the nation didn't know it was waiting for. Cable news blasted split screens every second. On the left, Trump sweating, stuttering, snapping. On the right, Denzel calm, steady, unmoved. Hashtags flooded every corner of the internet. Hashtag Boogate. Hashtag Denzel was right. Hashtag Trump meltdown live. Even late-night hosts, usually slow to react, were pushing emergency monologues. But the most surprising reactions didn't come from celebrities or political pundits, they came from ordinary people. A trucker from Ohio posted, "I voted for Trump twice. But last night? I saw a man scared of a sound he couldn't control, and another man who didn't flinch." A teacher in Florida wrote, "Denzel didn't even speak, and he won. That's leadership." A veteran in Arizona put it bluntly. "A real leader takes a hit and stands tall." Trump crumbled from a crowd. Meanwhile, inside the White House war room, Trump's advisors were in damage control mode. Charts, polls, crisis drafts, none of it helped. Every time they tried to counter the narrative, another clip of Denzel resurfaced. His silence. His composure. The way he simply smiled, and somehow that one expression looked more presidential than anything Trump said all week. Why does he look so calm? Trump yelled, slamming a folder shut. No one answered. Because they all knew. And he knew. America knew. Denzel wasn't trying to win anything. And that made him impossible to beat. That afternoon, a photo went viral, Denzel walking into a studio, head high, expression firm, wearing the same quiet intensity he carried the night before. No entourage. No spectacle. Just presence. One caption rose above the rest. Calm is a power loud men fear. And Trump? He was about to learn that lesson the hard way. By the next evening, every major network wanted one thing: Denzel and Trump in the same room again. Only one show pulled it off, America's most watched primetime political roundtable, Nationline Live. The studio was electric. Cameras were already rolling. Producers whispered frantically behind glass. Even the audience had a different kind of tension, like they knew something historic might happen. Denzel arrived first. No entourage. No teleprompter notes. Just that same unshakable posture, that calm focus that had somehow turned him into the nation's unexpected moral compass overnight. He took his seat, leaned back, and waited. Trump arrived 5 minutes late, storming into the studio like a man already losing a fight he refused to admit he was in. His tie was crooked. His jaw tight. His staff trailing behind him like a string of terrified interns heading into a fire. The host tried to open the show with a neutral intro, but Trump cut her off immediately. Before we get into anything, he snapped, I want to address this whole booing nonsense, because... Denzel didn't move. Didn't react. Didn't blink. Trump hated that. You think it's funny, don't you? Trump spat, pointing across the table. You smile while the media lies about me. And then, exactly like the night before, Denzel did it again. He smiled. Slow. Calm. Controlled. A smile that said, You're exposing yourself without me saying a word. The audience gasped. The host froze. Even the crew behind the cameras leaned closer. Trump's face tightened. He tried to regain ground, leaning into the mic. You think you're some kind of hero? Some Hollywood tough guy? You're nothing but. Denzel raised one finger. Not to silence him. But to warn him. A gesture that stopped Trump mid-sentence. A gesture that felt more powerful than a shout. Careful, Denzel said softly. Not angry. Not loud. Just steady. The room shifted. The nation felt it through the screen. Trump blinked rapidly, thrown off balance. No one had ever told him, careful, on live television. And made it sound like a promise. Denzel leaned forward. You're rattled by booze, Donald, he said. Imagine being rattled by truth. The audience exploded. The host panicked. Trump's team scrambled. And America? America replayed those 6 words on loop. For a moment, the studio felt weightless. Like every molecule in the air was waiting to see what Trump would do next. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It was the first time in the entire broadcast he looked lost. Like a man searching for a line that wasn't there. The host leaned in nervously. Gentlemen, let's. Denzel didn't break eye contact with Trump. He didn't need volume. He needed precision. You're rattled because a crowd booed you, Denzel said, voice controlled. But millions of Americans get booed by the system every single day. For being poor. For speaking up. For not fitting your version of acceptable. You don't know their struggle, Donald. You only know your pride. Trump slammed his palm on the table. That's ridiculous. I've done more for this country than anyone. I've been treated horribly, horribly. Worse than any president, worse than any. Denzel raised an eyebrow. Worse than Lincoln? His tone was soft, but the jab was surgical. The audience burst into laughter. A low wave that made Trump's face turn a shade of red the cameras couldn't soften. He pointed at Denzel like a man drowning and grabbing at shadows. You think you're better than me? You think you understand politics? You're an actor. I built an empire. Denzel leaned forward, elbows on the desk, voice dropping to a quiet intensity. And yet, he said, you can't handle a stadium full of people telling you the truth. The room froze. Trump blinked. Hard. Denzel didn't look away. You mistake applause for loyalty. You mistake fear for respect. And you mistake criticism for persecution. He paused, letting the words land. That's not leadership. That's insecurity. The audience didn't cheer this time. They didn't laugh. They didn't move. It was too raw. Too real. Too close to home. Trump swallowed, visibly shaken. He glanced at the cameras, at the crew, at the host. Anyone who might rescue him. No one moved. Denzel sat back slowly, the calmest man in the storm he had just created. America didn't boo you because they hate you, he added gently. They booed because they finally saw you. Trump's jaw clenched. His hands trembled. And for the first time all night, he had no comeback. Trump sat frozen, staring at the desk like it had betrayed him. The studio lights reflected off his face, exposing every twitch, every micro-panic, every ounce of ego collapsing under its own weight. For the first time all night, he looked less like a former president and more like a man realizing the room no longer revolved around him. The host tried to jump in, but the air was too heavy, too electric, too alive with the anticipation of something seismic. Everyone knew Denzel hadn't delivered his final line yet. You could feel it, waiting like thunder behind a mountain. Trump finally looked up. I've been treated unfairly by everyone, he muttered. The media, the voters, the FBI. Even people in my own party. Denzel lifted one hand. Just a small gesture. But Trump stopped talking instantly. And that's when Denzel delivered the moment that would replay on every screen in America. Donald, he said softly, the boos weren't the problem. Your reaction was. Trump blinked hard. You didn't stand there and take it. You didn't listen. You didn't reflect. You didn't ask why people were angry. Denzel leaned forward, voice steady and razor sharp. You ran backstage and blamed everyone but yourself. A few gasps echoed through the audience. That's not strength, Denzel went on. That's fear wearing a suit. Trump's breathing grew heavier. He tried to laugh, but it cracked halfway out. You're twisting things. No, Denzel replied calmly. I'm naming them. The silence was suffocating. Denzel placed both hands on the desk, his posture unshakable. You say the stadium humiliated you, he said. But the truth is simple. Leaders don't crumble when people tell them the truth. They step up. They grow. They change. His voice dropped to a deep, grounded stillness. And you? You blamed America for not cheering loud enough. The audience erupted. Not with laughter, not with applause. But with a low, powerful murmur. A sound that said, this was the line everyone would remember. Trump stared at Denzel with an expression no camera had ever caught before. Not anger, not arrogance. But something much smaller. Denzel leaned back, finished. You weren't booed for what you did, he said. You were booed for who you chose to be. The host finally cut to commercial, voice trembling. Will be right back. But it didn't matter. America had already heard the final blow. And nothing about Trump's legacy, or Denzel's, would ever be the same.